We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxing Ego Unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live.
I got some real bad news. 2024 and for the foreseeable future, the boxing game is full of cap. Shakur Stevenson is claiming he can't find an opponent. According to Eddie Hearn, who may be working with Shakur Stevenson, they might be looking to make a fight with Shakur and Joe Cordova from the UK. I've already talked about this in a video. Make sure you check that out on the page. The only problem with this is Shakur is a quality fighter. He's a skilled fighter. Cordina is coming off of a loss and he would be moving up in weight. So if Shakur works with Eddie Hearn and presumably Turkey, because Turkey said he wanted to work with Shakur Stevenson, is this really the best we can do? And Shakur, he's putting out this message that he's down to fight everybody, but it's everybody else's fault. This is the best that they can come up with because basically he's the boogeyman and nobody is willing to step up to the plate. So in this video, I'm going to break down my thoughts, my truest thoughts, and expose and explain the problems I have with that. Problem number one. For starters, nobody cares, right? Like, for example, I don't feel like making this video right now. Nobody cares. This is my job. I love my job. And whether I feel like it or if I don't feel like it, duty calls. And I'm sure most people who are part of the working class in America or wherever you are in the world, you can relate to this. There's been plenty of times where you went to work, but you didn't want to go to your job. But you got a kid, you have a wife, you have a car note, you have mortgage, whatever the case is, right? So ultimately, that's as simple as I can make it. Nobody cares. It's about, if you want to be a star in boxing, you got to have the right ingredients and you have to move your career in a certain way, fight to certain fights. And that's just the skinny of it. Have a good team, get the proper fights in, hopefully have some personality, show the world who you are, obviously have skills in the ring to translate to make people want to watch your fights, etc. So ultimately, no one cares. That's for starters. But beyond that, and make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video because I'm going to share a y'all must have forgot moment from Shakur Stevenson. So definitely be on the listen for that in this video. The other issues that I have is you can't really be the boogeyman if there's viable and suitable opponent names that you could be fighting, but you're not for one reason or another, right? People are calling your name out. You're not the boogeyman. And I'm almost surprised, but then again, I'm not surprised because I understand it. But I seem to be the only one who frequently and consistently calls out some of these issues. A lot of people, they're either biased. Some people are racist. Others, they are so worried about possibly getting an interview. Let's say like an interview, right? They're worried so much. I'm talking about media now. People who deal with interviews. They are so worried about capturing the media that they want to walk on eggshells as to not offend the fighters. Now, I'm a professional. You guys have known that. I put many years into my craft. I will work with anybody. I don't have, this is nothing personal. I don't want to fight fighters and, you know, I'm not attacking their families, but I have a job to do and I'm expressing my opinion. Now, I understand that some people are thin-skinned and they just don't want anything unless people are singing their praises. And for that reason, maybe some people don't like me or my approach. To each his own. You don't have to like me. It is what it is. Doesn't stop me from doing my job though, because I'm not in this for people to like me. I got enough friends, even if I had no friends, that I'll just be dolo. It's that simple. So I feel like the integrity in boxing is severely lacking. And a lot of this stuff that I'm saying is very plain to see. But again, for various reasons, different agendas, you have people who are afraid to comment on some of these things because they don't want to ruin that interview opportunity to try to get an exclusive with said fighter. Me, I don't worry about that. I don't go out of my way to try to offend people, but I will speak my opinion, and I've earned that. So regarding Shakur Stevenson, let's get into it. Like, the bottom line is, why am I the only one of my stature, like with a platform this size, and I'm talking about Shakur versus Edwin De Los Santos rematch? Why? That makes all the sense in the world. I get it. People want to see Shakur and Devin or Shakur and Tank, but let's say those fights aren't available. Devin coming off a bad, grueling fight with Ryan, dealing with what he's dealing with because Ryan tested positive. He's taking some time off. Tank, he's the A side, different promotional things, which I'll get to at the end of this video. Why not a guy like Edwin De Los Santos? Why would we be talking about Shakur versus Joe Cordina? And what's worse is Shakur's going along with it. Shakur is on social media, and this is what I talked about in my first video, where he's basically saying, oh man, but Cordina is a good fighter and he's a 2X champion. And it sounds just like Terrence Crawford. When Crawford was fighting certain guys like Mean Machine or Madrimov, and the public is saying, hey, these aren't the fights that we particularly want. But then Crawford will be like, man, Ricky Burns is a signature win and Felix Diaz. But ultimately, the crowd and the consumer, they like what they like. So I think I speak for boxing when I say this. Outside of maybe some UK fans or diehard Shakur fans, many people aren't really checking for or looking forward to the fight with Shakur and Joe Cordina. So I really hope it doesn't happen. But the fact that you may work with Eddie Hearn and he's speaking and you haven't corrected this and said, hey, Eddie don't know what he's talking about. I'll never fight Cordina coming off a loss. And you're actually defending it, leads me to believe that there's legs, because Shakur's talking about, oh, this is just a tune-up because no one else will fight me. Edwin De Los Santos, you said in the first fight that you had a messed up hand. And I think he said he was sick. All these different reasons for why he looked like he did. People said he was running. People said that, you know, he wouldn't sit still and knuckle up, and it just wasn't an exciting fight. So if no one is willing to fight you, which we know is cap, but that's one person who we haven't heard anything about his next move. He's available. You're looking for someone, and you already fought him. And you said you fought him with injury. So now that you're back healthy, as you stated in the Artem Haratunian fight, why not fight him? Why would you be looking down the division to some guy moving up and a guy who's moving up off of a knockout loss? I mean, it's horrible. And then again, Shakur is trying to sell the fans on this via his comments on social media. Like, oh, but Cordina is good. And, you know, I see people trying to have conversations saying Cordina is better than Frank Martin. That's subjective. We don't know. First of all, how are you going to say Cordina is better than a guy in a division he hasn't fought any top names in that division? This is what I'm saying. This what shows you I'm the best in the business, because I give it to you real. If Cordina is a 130-pound guy, how can you say he's better than Frank Martin, who's been fighting at 135? Can Cordina beat Artem Haratunian? Because Frank Martin did. Can Cordina move up in weight and beat a Michelle Rivera, who's big and strong and has been winning ever since he lost to Frank Martin, because Frank Martin did. And could Cordina go as many rounds with Gervonta Davis and, you know, make it to the end of the fight and or beat Gervonta Davis, because Frank Martin couldn't. But if Tank fought Cordina, believe you me, I strongly believe that there would be a lot of criticism for Tank taking that fight. They'll be calling Tank a cherry picker, etc. Shakur says, he says me and Tank are the top two guys at lightweight. So if you're one of the top two guys, right, 1A and 1B, whatever we're calling it, then how is it that you get to fight a guy moving up in weight off of a loss, a knockout loss, right? But then you had the audacity to criticize Gervonta Davis fighting Frank Martin. And then the fans have the audacity to say Tank hasn't beat anyone and he needs to step it up. So I can't wait. I hope this fight gets made just so I have more content to make, because Shakur versus Cordina is trash. It's supremely trash. And I don't care how you try. Oh, it's just a tune-up. Oh, Shakur's duck. Oh, he wanted to fight Tank and there's no contract. Man, I don't care about none of that. It's a trash fight. Point blank, period. Especially the fact that the man's not of the weight class and coming off of a knockout loss. It's just not a good fight. And again, you got a guy like Edwin De Los Santos. Shakur, this is the other problem that I've noticed in this game of boxing, especially in 2024. You have people who will say and or do certain things and then act oblivious to criticism that they're receiving, when to me it's simply a chain reaction. Don't start none, won't be none. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? So I feel like there's a lot of people in boxing currently who, what they're doing is they'll say anything, do anything, say things that don't make sense. And then when people question it, then they'll say, you're the bad guy, you're the hater, right? I get this with Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford made a statement that his fight with Madrimov feels bigger than the Errol Spence fight, which we all know is preposterous. But this is what Crawford said. So how am I the bad guy? Because he made a public statement. I listened to what he had to say and it sounds ridiculous, and I respond to that. Guess what? If he never made the comparison, then I wouldn't be making content rejecting the deposit. You see how this works? And this is what we're seeing. Like Shakur and some of the other fighters, they're making it sound like, oh, I'm the most hated. Everybody just hates on me no matter what I do. No, I don't think that's the case. If you rematch Edwin De Los Santos, trust me, you're not going to get the same amount of hate as you're going to get for fighting a Joe Cordina coming off of a knockout loss and moving up from 130. It's really easy to see. In addition, you wouldn't get so much hate if you didn't say what you previously said. Roll the clip.
You think Tank washes you think he washes Frank Martin?
I mean, that's why he fighting him. He's picking and choosing. That's what he do. Tank take the least risk. If Tank was really a risky nigga or this person he claimed to be, he would have fought Edwin De Los Santos. Why not fight the nigga that actually fought me instead of the nigga that pulled out from fighting me? But Frank Martin is not like no elite fighter. Frank Martin is a dude that signed up to fight me, got famous for signing up to fight me, and then not fighting me. That's what he got famous. That's what he's famous for. Literally, when they said Shakur versus Frank Martin was gonna fight, bro, this nigga name done blew up. And now we up here like we gonna fight each other. Then he backed out the fight.
Delusional. What he just said right there was pure delusion. He said, for one, he said that nobody knew Frank Martin, and he made his name, or his claim to fame was when it was being reported that Shakur was fighting Frank Martin. He's basically saying nobody knew who this guy was. That's cap. Because if we didn't know who Frank Martin was, when it was announced by ESPN that you, Shakur, and Frank Martin were going to fight, why would everyone have been so happy? Everybody was like, this is a good fight. This is a good fight. If we didn't know who the guy was, we wouldn't have been screaming it was a good fight. Everybody was saying that. But it just so happened that the money wasn't right. Frank Martin already said that. And he said, I'm going to an opposing network. The money wasn't right. So the deal fell apart. So we had to have known who Frank Martin was in order for us to be excited about you fighting him. So Shakur saying that no one knew who Frank Martin was up until the moment where he was going to fight him, that's cap. I watched Frank Martin versus Michelle Rivera, and then the guy that also fought and people said beat Rolly, Jackson Marinez, and then the guy that Ryan Garcia knocked out, Romero Duno. So I had been watching Frank Martin well before you and Frank Martin allegedly were going to fight, which didn't even materialize. But even more so, he's bashing Tank before the Frank Martin fight, saying Frank Martin is not elite. He's saying Tank is not, he's cherry picking basically, and he's not this risky ninja. If he was a risky ninja, he would fight Edwin De Los Santos. This is what he said.
That's why he fighting him. He's picking and choosing. That's
Watches Frank Martin.
I mean, that's why he fighting him. He's picking and choosing. That's what he do. Tank take the least risk. If Tank was really a risky nigga or this.
Okay, Tank take the least risk. So what would you be doing by fighting Joe Cordova, Dina, a guy coming? You can't listen. I know for a fact that I am the best in the business, and it's not even close. They want to outthink me. They want to outwork me. They want me to be wrong, but in your heart, you know I'm right. My big mouth. If Tank Davis is a cherry picker for fighting an undefeated Frank Martin who beat Artem Harutyunyan and almost stopped him, the guy that Shakur just fought in his last fight, and you said that, oh, Tank's only picking him because he's a cherry picker and he not a risk taker, yada, yada, yada. You fought Frank Martin's leftovers after he beat him, and he beat him more dominantly than you because he almost stopped him. And people weren't leaving early like they did in your own hometown. And now Artem was coming off a loss to Frank Martin. That's one. And now you're being rumored to fight against a guy who's coming off not only a loss, but a knockout loss in Joe Cordina. And on social media, you have Shakur Stevenson trying to defend this. Like this is a good fight. Like this is a fight that people want to see. So again, that's why I got to play these clips. I got the memory of an elephant. We not going to forget. Y'all must have forgot.
You think Tank washes, you think he washes Frank Martin?
I mean, that's why he fighting him. He's picking and choosing. That's what he do. Tank take the least risk. If Tank was really a risky nigga or this person he claimed to be, he would have fought Edwin De Los Santos. Why not fight the nigga that actually fought me instead of the nigga that pulled out from fighting me?
So once again, you're saying Tank ain't fighting nobody and he's not taking risks. He's a cherry picker. But we all know Frank Martin at lightweight, undefeated Frank Martin southpaw, bigger than Tank, is a bigger fight, a fight that you could sell, which they did in Vegas with David Benavidez on the undercard. And he's more of a brand and a threat than the guy coming off a knockout loss from 130. So this age, a lot of what Shakur Stevenson has said has aged like milk. Boxing Ego, the stuff I say, it ages like a fine wine. And you guys see that over time. You might not like it initially, but then when you go back and listen to them Boxing Ego tapes, you'll be like, man, Ego was on to something. I should have listened. This man said Tank is a cherry picker for fighting Frank Martin and questioned and said, why is he not fighting Edwin De Los Santos? So if Tank's a cherry picker for Frank Martin and you just fought Frank Martin's leftovers coming off a loss, and now they're saying you're rumored to fight another guy coming off a loss, but this time he's coming off a knockout loss from a lighter division, but you was criticizing, you, Shakur, you were criticizing Tank. It doesn't make sense. You're not going to be able to talk yourself out of this one. There's no way. There's no mental gymnastics that exists that you could do that makes that make sense. Especially when we know in America and universally, Tank Frank Martin is a way bigger fight than Shakur versus Cordina will ever be. So it's bigger on all accounts. It's bigger in terms of anticipation, demand. More people would want to watch that fight, but it's also a bigger challenge. And you had Shakur who was throwing rocks, and they say you shouldn't throw stones if you live in a glass house. Shakur Stevenson is the first to try to urge and make his point. Fast forward to the future, you might team up with Eddie and Riyadh season, and they're going to give you a rematch room special. And then now you're sitting up here defending it, but you were just criticizing. That's why in boxing, it just pays to keep it real. If you're doing a tune-up or a not desired fight, then it's going to age horribly when we go back like I just did. And that's just one interview. He's done other tweets and other posts and other interviews where he said equally foolish things, but now it looks stupid, especially if you fight Cordina. And then again, you said if Tank was really a risky ninja, he would be fighting Edwin De Los Santos instead of the guy that my fight fell apart with, which was Frank Martin. So you've said that Edwin De Los Santos is like a top 3, top 4 lightweight. So if you rate him so highly, why are you fighting Cordina, who clearly is not a top 5 lightweight, because he's coming off a loss at 130 where he got stopped? You can make up all the excuses for why he got stopped. Oh, he was draining himself and he was weight drained at the division. Crawford looked weight drained versus Errol Spence, but he had a spectacular performance. So there's other guys that have been weight drained, but then they replenish and rehydrate and they handle business. So there's still not an excuse to get cooked by an okay opponent, right? And again, if you rate Edwin De Los Santos so highly, top 4, top 5, and saying everybody's afraid of him, including Tank, why don't you fight him in a rematch, fully healthy, which is far more impressive? And see, this is the thing. It's not making sense, people. Turkey, Riyadh season, you guys gave a lot of precedence to and a lot of credit prematurely. They've been in boxing maybe since December. And you guys said stuff like, oh, Turkey saved boxing. He reinvigorated the game. They got endless money. They don't care about losing money. So if these things that you guys are saying are true, and Turkey said he wants to work with Shakur, give us Edwin De Los Santos too. If you have an endless war chest full of money, a better fight, we all know, is Shakur Edwin De Los Santos rematch. Both guys healthy, no excuses to see if Shakur could do better. But the reality is Shakur knows why the fight was hard, and he knows that the rematch will be hard too. And I don't think he wants to. He's just like, I got past it. I just want to move on. So Shakur, you know, he's like, man, I wanted Pitbull. His whole career so far, especially at lightweight, has been, I wanted Pitbull, but I couldn't get him. I wanted this guy, but I couldn't get him. I mean, again, like I said earlier in this video, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Who are you going to fight? What events? You'll never be a star saying, oh, I tried, guys, but I couldn't. Nobody cares. You don't think Floyd Mayweather was avoided when he was Pretty Boy Floyd, especially? Guys didn't want, he was calling out Prince Nassim, called out Shane Mosley, De La Hoya, Costa Zoo. I mean, it's part of the game. But if you're good and you make smart decisions and have the right team, then you can overcome that and obviously keep winning and stuff like that. So that's my unpack. Shakur Stevenson versus Cordina sucks. And his previous comments about Tank aged very badly. We unpack.